Welcome to Startup Stories, third edition. This time we have a very unusual guest, but also a different format. So let me talk to you about the format itself. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19's second wave, we could not have our guest today in person in Bhubaneswar. So we are doing this on Zoom. And despite the fact that we're going to do it on Zoom, I'm sure that you will find this conversation to be very rich and very meaningful. Now, let me tell you about the other interesting thing, and that is the entrepreneur himself that we are engaging with today. I'm very happy to present you the founder of a company called Reverie. Now, Reverie basically means, the word Reverie means a daydream. But enterprise building is not about daydreaming. It is about dreaming with your eyes wide open. It is about carrying a burden of dream on which you execute day in and day out. And that person doing it perfectly is a man called Arvind Pani, who's a founder who started the company with two other co-founders. And today, this company is redefining the idea of Indian language use for businesses on the internet. So let's talk to Arvind Pani, a man with great intellectual clarity, business acumen, and a man with profound understanding of values in business, of doing the right things the right way. So let me, on behalf of all of us, welcome Arvind. Arvind, good afternoon and welcome to Startup Story. And thank you for joining us from faraway Bangalore. आपण भुवनेश्वर रे बढ़िचंती भुवनेश्वर रे यौथ परिवार रो पिला आपण जेजे बापा को प्रभाव पड़िथिला शैशव रे बापा आपणकर ओयूएटी रे जणे दक्ष वैज्ञानिक थिले समस्त तांको सम्मान करथिले बापा माँ जेजे सान भाई एई परिवार को नहीं कि आपणकर भुवनेश्वर रे शैशव तेबे सेही शैशवर दिन आ पारिवारिक प्रभाव केमती आपण को ऊपर पड़िथिला आपण चरित्र उपरे आपण चिंताधारा उपरे आपणकर जीवन शैली उपरे आ परवर्ती काल रे जणे उद्योगी हिसाब रे आपण किपरि भाव रे सेही प्रभाव को देखुचंती से विषय टिके कहंतु।
नमस्कार सर एई अपॉर्चुनिटी पाई बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। एटा मो मोर गोटे प्रिविलेज कंसीडर करूची आपण संगे इंटरैक्ट करिवा पई। मु जन्म होइतली भुवनेश्वर रे आपण जेमति कहले मोर सेटा जेजबापा घर जोटी मु बड़ हेची मोर बापा यूएटी रे जने साइंटिस्ट थिले किंतु मोर जेजबापा मो ऊपर बहुत इन्फ्लुएंस पड़ीची। मु हमर फैमिली रे मु आ मोर भाई आमे दी जण आउ के सिबलिंग नाहंती हमर दी जण जाको आमे बहुत लकी बहुत फॉर्चुनेट मने करू निजको कि आमे जेजबापा संगे बड़ हेई पारिलु। तांकर बहुत बड़ इन्फ्लुएंस पड़ची। से चीफ इंजीनियर ऑफ ओडिशा सेतबेले हाईएस्ट पोस्ट थिला सेटा से पोजीशन रे से रिटायर कले। से एते भलो एते रिनाउंड इंजीनियर थिले तांको सेंटर रु भी बहुत थर ऑफर आसिला कि आपण आसिकरी सेंटर रे जॉइन करंतु किंतु से कहले जे मोर स्टेट पई आगो मोर काम बहुत अछि सेडा मोर सरू तापरे मु अलगा कथा भाबीबी। तांकर स्टेट पई तांकर काम सरिलानी कि से अलगा पडे गलेनी। मु जदी गोटे जीनियस को बहुत क्लोज क्वार्टर्स रु देखिची इंटरैक्ट करिची से होचंती मोर जेजबापा। से बहुत एम्पैथेटिक थिले लोक मान को सहाय्य करंती। से एई सब जिंस नै किरी तांकर जो हमें देखिलु हार्ड वर्क डेडिकेशन सिंसियरिटी ऑनेस्टी इंटेग्रिटी एई सब जिंस रो बहुत असर पड़िला मो ऊपर आ मोर भाई।
Very nice. And the interesting thing is, on one hand, you have an engineer par excellence in the home, and also you have a scientist at home, and the two combined probably together to create the innovative spirit in you. Can we say that?
Yes, probably. I have never thought about it consciously, but subconsciously that might be the case. Because my grandfather was very entrepreneurial in nature, very entrepreneurial. Like I said, he used to do things on his own, and we have always seen him thinking about, he's like a true engineer in blood. And my father, although he was employed, he himself was also entrepreneurial. Say, आमे तबले सान थिलु से छोटो छोटो जिंस करबा पे चेष्टा करचंती हमर घरे जेतु एते जागा थिला सेठी जे छतु चाष भी करथले तांकर माने साइंटिफिक नॉलेज ताकू यूटिलाइज करी की छतु चाष करथले तापरे हमर किचन गार्डन थिला सेठी केमती अल्प जागा रे बेसी जिंस प्रोड्यूस हे परिबो सेटा करथले हम घरे आमे गाई भी रखी दिलु मिल्क और मिल्क प्रोडक्ट्स तो तार केमती एफिशिएंसी हो सो ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स वर देयर so in a ways you can say that that is something that we probably inherited but the other part was that ki moro parents mo upre kebe pressure पकई नांती कि तू एटा कर सेटा कर जोटा भलो लागुची लाइफ टा एक्सपेरिमेंट कर जोटा भलो लागुची सेटा परस्यू कर लाइफ टा एंजॉय कर
very nice, you've been very lucky that way. So आपण पढ़िले आम यूनिट 9 रो केंद्रीय विद्यालय रे
आज्ञा
आ तापरे गले एनआईटी आ एनआईटी परे पहुंचले आपण प्रथम स्टार्टअप हवा गुरु इंटेल पर्यंत ए जो जर्नी आपण करथिला से जर्नी विषय टे कहंतु
मु एनआईटी राउरकेला गली मोर तो आगो मु कहबी आपन मोर कैरियर चॉइस तो सेतबेले आमे जेतबेले पास करलु सेतबेले समस्त जेंती पॉपुलर चॉइस पछरे जानती मु भी सेंती करी सेतबेले दीटा चॉइस थिला गोटे इंजीनियरिंग आउ थिला गोटे मेडिकल मेडिकल पाई बायोलॉजी रे भलो मार्क्स रखिवा दरकार भलो बायोलॉजी टा भलो होतवा दरकार किंतु मोर बायोलॉजी मोर एते इंटरेस्ट नथिला कि भलो हो नथिला रिलेटिवली मोर मैथमेटिक्स साइंस फिजिक्स एथरे इंटरेस्ट थिला तो सेति पई मु इंजीनियरिंग चूज करली आउ इंजीनियरिंग चूज करी कि मु एनआईटी राउरकेला गली किंतु हाइंडसाइट रे मु जदी देखिया पे जीबी मोर इंजीनियरिंग प्रति नैक नाही मोर बेटर नैक जदी एबे इफ आई हैव टू रिफ्लेक्ट बैक ऑन माय स्कूल डेज आई हैड बेटर नैक टुवर्ड्स लिटरेचर writing all of these kind of stuff so maybe I was aware I could have done something along those lines at that time but setobale ete awareness nathila to engineering mu kali au engineering mu metallurgy material science re mu करली सेटो पास करला परे मु स्टील अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया लिमिटेड आरएसपी राउरकेला स्टील प्लांट रे ही मु चाकरी करबा आरंभ करली सेठी नुवा कमिशन हेतिला तबे मॉडर्नाइजेशन सरथिला से मॉडर्नाइजेशन रो गोटे पार्ट थिला गोटे नुवा सेंटर प्लांट सेठी मते गोटे अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलिला आउ मु सेठी 1.5 वर्ष थिली काम भी बहुत सिखिली मु किंतु मुसे पब्लिक सेक्टर कल्चर संगरे मु टिके जेल करि पालिनी सेठी टिके माइंडसेट अलगा प्रकार थिला जो टीम संगरे मु काम करथली त सेठी मु जेल करि पालिनी आउ ता संगरे संगरे मोर एटा भी इच्छा थिला तळ से ट्रेंड चलथला सेतबेले सॉफ्टवेयर को शिफ्ट करिवा अमेरिका जिबा से सो ड्रीम्स थिला सेटा भी मोर थिला सेतबेले मु आरएसपी छाडीली सेतबेले मते जेवियर्स इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मैनेजमेंट रे भी ऑफर मिलसला जॉइन करिवा पई मु पूरा क्वालिफाई कर जाइथिली किंतु सेटा को मु ड्रॉप करली मु डिसाइड करली सॉफ्टवेयर को स्विच करबी आ चेष्टा करली तो सेतबेले एटा इजी नथिला मो पई कांगिना मोर सॉफ्टवेयर बैकग्राउंड नथिला सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सपीरियंस नथिला मते इनिशियली स्ट्रगल करिया पड़ला मु बॉम्बे गली बॉम्बे रे मु 1.5 वर्ष रहिली विदाउट एनी इनकम विदाउट एनी जॉब विदाउट एनी सेविंग्स आउ मु सेतबेले प्रोबोनो भी काम करली गोटे कंपनी रे फॉर 1 ईयर दैट वाज अ ग्रेट पीरियड कांगिना इफ आई हैव टू रिफ्लेक्ट आई लर्नड अ लॉट आजिकली जेंती एते पिलां को लागुची आमे आईआईटी रो आछू एनआईटी रो आछू गोटे सेंस ऑफ एंटाइटलमेंट हमको एतकी पैसा मिलवा दरकार तो एटलीस्ट एते अर्ली से सब स्ट्रगल्स देखिलारु मते जणा पड़ला कि किछि माने सेंस ऑफ एंटाइटलमेंट इज नथिंग दैट आई शुड बी कैरिंग इट इज लाइक द वैल्यू दैट आई क्रिएट okay for myself that is my worth.
So you actually worked without any salary in a company in Bombay for more than a year to be able to learn a new area of work, and that's a major decision, and this must have been at some level very frustrating. This must have been at some level difficult because of comparison with peer group, and of course the pressure to be explaining your current situation to your family.
Fortunately enough, like I said, my family always understood, and that 1.5 years was very difficult. I still remember that now I got an opportunity to work pro bono because one of my uncles was in a senior position in that company. Although he could have helped me get employed there, but I decided to work pro bono there for some time to be able to learn. to be able to learn software and get into the IT industry. I still remember, I remember that my friends, very close friends from my school and college, they are the ones who helped me. And I had only one pair of trousers and two shirts that I used for that entire year. I used to go to that office for working. And my daily schedule was that I come back home and wash my clothes, dry those. And then again in the morning, I press those clothes, wear those, and go to the office. So yeah, I mean, it has taught me a lot of things at that.
Very inspiring. And of course, after that, Lady Luck smiled on you, and you straight went from no salary pro bono work in Bombay all the way to Intel. And Intel is where the best brains in the world work. So what did you do in Intel?
So in Intel, after I worked pro bono, I actually got an employment in L&T John Deere in Pune I was there for about 3 months. Again, that didn't work out as well as I would have thought. So I switched, and then in Bangalore, Intel was starting up its center at that time, their first software center. In fact, apart from sales and marketing, they didn't have any presence till that time in India. So that was the first time they were starting. I was among the first few who joined. So I joined their enterprise software group, where we were supposed to deploy and implement enterprise software within Intel's for Intel's own business. So that is what I did, and the job was really to see how much of everything was at that time happening in the US. So how some of those things could be co-located to India and growing the India center. So, and one of the things I would like to mention is that whether it was in RSP, the new center plan that I had joined, then L&T John Deere, where I had worked for about 3 months, that was also very new unit. It was a joint venture between L&T and John Deere, or for that matter, even Intel when they started in Bangalore. The common theme is that they were all part of a larger setup, but they were kind of startups. So I got a lot of opportunity to do things beyond what was required. So my Intel's journey was also like that. I took up a lot of responsibilities. I got associated in multiple initiatives because when the site is growing, there are so many opportunities which are there. And that really also helped me learn a lot of things and also continuously challenge myself and go beyond what I'm comfortable doing and try to do and learn new things.
So after Intel, actually, thanks to the vision of your younger brother to build a company together, was the start of your first startup, which had a run all the way till probably about 3 years, right, before it folded up. So that was your first entrepreneurial journey. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about what that company was doing, and what was your most significant lesson in running a startup and then folding it up and starting all over again?
First and foremost, I never term any of these things as failures, because there are key learnings that I had. If I didn't have those learning, then I couldn't have done things better in my next startup. So our first startup was way ahead of its time. We were working on mobile payments and commerce. This I'm talking about way back in 2007. And there are two things. The reason why we decided to shut it down. I and my brother, we were first generation entrepreneurs. No business background in the family, no entrepreneurial background in the family. And coming from a tech background, we tend to feel that a good technology is equivalent to good business.
That's true.
But we don't realize that to make a good business, there are so many other things that need to come together. So one of the most important learning for me was that in the mobile payment space, right, the entire flow of money, the payment is the last channel where it happens. And someone to be in the payment business, it just trickles down. And to be able to make a good, big business out of it, the scale has to be massive, right? Which was, of course, not there at that time. Then RBI was quite finicky about mobile payments and security because even they did not understand what kind of security framework they need to put in place. So all kinds of certification they mandated. And we being bootstrapped, it was very difficult for us to invest that kind of money for certification. So in summary, one of the biggest lesson for me was that not necessarily it's only good technology that makes good business. Right? There are other aspects that need to be taken care of. The second learning I had was, in fact, in this particular startup, we were 5 founders. And that was more out of accident than choice, that choosing who are the people who become our co-founders. And many times over, people have really asked me that what makes a good co-founder, right? And I share from my own experience that I really learned what kind of co-founder not to have. So the biggest mistake that we usually do is choosing someone that we have got along well from the family, friends, ex-colleagues, right? Or school or college mates who have been good friends with us and we have gotten along well. That's a very big mistake. My learning is that a good co-founder is one with whom we have had history of conflict earlier. Yet, we have been able to resolve those conflicts objectively without putting each one of our ego on the table. The moment the ego comes onto the table, we really lose sight of the big picture. And that is where, even though the startup may have very big potential, it doesn't work out. So in my previous startup, we had 5 founders and directionally very different. So it was only I and my brother, we were looking in one direction, and there were other people. I'm not blaming them, but their priorities, their thinking were very different. So that was another very big learning for us, that what kind of co-founders not to have along with you in your journey.
Amazing, amazing insight, and I always have admired the clarity of your thought process. And I couldn't agree more, because I always believed that you have to put friendship aside. Friendship is a nice thing, but first you must have deep professional respect for each other before you can co-found a company. And the deep professional respect for each other, one of the big components of that is the ability to disagree without being disagreeable. So I can completely empathize, and that was also a learning for me after the failure of my first startup. And when we built Mindtree with 10 co-founders, we were able to actually build a very good team, because we had shared vision on what we wanted the company in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years time. So that's very well put across. Now, moving from the startup, so Reverie means daydream, right? And a company is not about daydreams. A company is about actually carrying a burden of dreams and executing on that burden every day. And that is what you have very successfully done with your current venture, along with Vivek and your third co-founder. So tell us very quickly about how did the 3 of you came together, and tell us a little bit about Reverie's business and where the company is today.
Let me first answer your question on the name itself, okay? Because this is something that I have been asked earlier too, that how did you come up with this name Reverie? And there is actually no story behind this. So while we were trying to find out a name, somebody suggested this word and we liked it. We didn't even know the meaning of this word. It's a French word.
Oh, really? You didn't know the meaning?
We didn't even know the meaning of Reverie at that time. So, and our company got registered with this name. Now, yes, you are right. After that, much later, we in fact got to know that Reverie means daydream. And there are always 2 ways to look at anything. One is, we can say that daydreaming is not something which is reality. But the other way to look at it is that even though it could appear as a daydream, right, that we could work towards its reality. So in a way, if I have to put context, and all of these things are in hindsight, because we didn't know the meaning of Reverie when we started. I'm now connecting this back, the name, to our vision. Now, right from the beginning, our vision was having language equality on internet in India. Okay. Let me take a moment to explain what language equality means. Now, for a moment, let's not take into account internet. If we take everything other than internet, all the rest of the media, we take print, we take television, we take cinema, we take radio. All of these media are inclusive. That means if I have to read English language newspaper or if I have to read Odia language newspaper, I do not have to do anything different. I can tell my newspaper vendor that you give me 2 editions, one English, one Odia. Similarly, if I have to watch any channel, whether it is English or Odia, I just have to flip channel and I'm there. Radio channels, same stuff. Odia movies, same stuff. But the moment we come onto the internet, English becomes a very big gating factor. The mobile phone starts in English language. Internet starts in English language. So finding anything on internet in our language becomes very difficult. And everything said and done, even today, about 71 years post our independence, even today, not more than 4% Indians are fluent in English to a point where they can say that I do not need any other language in my life. So that is the vision that with which we started. We have continued with that vision. It's been 11 years now, and we are proud as well as fortunate that our purpose has not changed. We have achieved several milestones along our journey, but our purpose continues to remain the same. So we can still say that we have probably just scratched the surface of achieving language equality in India. And that could be considered as a daydream, if I may say so. But we aspire that one day this daydream becomes a reality. So that's how I would like to associate our dream with the name of the company, although in hindsight.
Tell us a little bit about the basic fact sheet of the company, if you will, in terms of, how many people use your technology, how many paying customers are there the world over, how many people work for Reverie today, and 5 years from now, how do you see the company? Where do you see the company?
Let me go back a little bit when we started. I will also give an analogy of this, that if people have to own and drive cars, then we require good roads. So road becomes an infrastructure. Now, when we started, we noticed that even the infrastructure was missing. What I term as infrastructure is the ability to even display local languages, Indian languages on phones was not there. This I'm talking about in 2009 when we started. And that was the genesis. So for large part of our first 5-6 years, we spent building this infrastructure. So I can tell you our contributions in that one. We were the first company in the world to support Indian languages on Android through our partnership with Qualcomm. Not just Indian languages, we were supporting 35 South Asian scripts, that were not available on Android at that point in time. So we did that. All the major brands in India were our customers, who were taking the language display and input solution to be embedded inside the mobile operating system. Now, on the total number of shipments that we would have had would be at least 150 to 200 million, if not more, through our partnership, both for Indian languages as well as other South Asian languages. Post that, we have also been working on how engagement can happen in local languages, right? So what I mean by engagement is, if any business or any entity, they want to engage with their end users, right? Like they're engaging in English language, they should be able to do that. For example, if any kind of promotion or campaign is there, that can be in local language to drive customer acquisition. The entire customer engagement process, starting right from content to user and interaction, that could be in Indian languages. Any kind of customer retention activities, those can be in Indian languages, right? If there are transactions involved, then transaction activities, including payments, information, shipping information, tracking information, all of those things could be in Indian languages. Now, we also work at a very large scale with government, both central as well as state government. Very recently, we have the COVID website on MyGov is using our platform to make it available in 10 Indian languages. And I would also like to use this opportunity to communicate that if we take some very fundamental things, we will start to see the gaps which are there. One of the visions of the country was that to connect everybody through Aadhaar. Every Indian should have Aadhaar. We remember a couple of years back that there was also a drive. The Aadhaar and PAN card should be linked. There were so many communication that were done to the citizens to link that, but everything was in English. Not a single communication was done in Indian languages. Right? Even today, when COVID is spreading and raging, it is destroying the country. We still do not have mechanisms to reach out to our citizens in their languages. The CoWIN website, which is there for booking appointments for vaccination, that itself is in English. So we can see how large a gap, a divide we have created on digital. So bridging this is something that we have been working towards. We have, like I mentioned, so in terms of our vision for next 3 to 5 years, there are 3 things that we are working towards. One is that we want to touch at least 500 million lives in India on a daily basis through our technologies. The second one is there is a certain way in which we are trying to solve this problem of Indian languages. That is, have a single unified platform that addresses every aspect of user engagement in Indian language. So we want that our method to be adopted as the most preferred method by our customers. And third is not a commercial aspiration, but it is more in terms of once again at a fundamental level setting things right, that the Indian language standards, the way they have been implemented digitally, they are flawed. And we would like to work with the government at a policy and regulatory level to fix that. I will give you a very simple example for everyone to understand. If we go and ask anybody how many alphabets are there in English, we have one universal response that 26. That's what we have been taught in schools. But there is no such consistency for Indian languages. If anybody asks us how many characters are there for Odia language, we would get different responses. The irony is that what is being taught in schools today to children, okay, the character set, that's different from what has been adopted as standards in digital. The other irony is that the standards for Indian languages are not defined in India. They are defined by international bodies. They are defined by companies that are not Indian companies. They are represented by people who don't understand the nuances of Indian languages. So that is creating a fundamental corrupted computing system for Indian languages where basic things like search, indexing, these cannot be done. So what I have just explained are 3 things that we want to achieve in 3 years' time, which we call as our mission 3x3, and our entire company is galvanized towards this mission 3x3.
So in terms of the, two questions I have. In terms of the size of the ambition in financial terms, in 3 years' time, how big would Reverie be in terms of sales turnover? And secondly, how many people work with you today?
There are 165 people who are there with us, and usually because we are also a Reliance portfolio company, we do not talk about our financial numbers in as public information. But like I mentioned, with the ambition that we have, the number of lives we want to touch, and also being the platform of choice, the reach that we are expecting, and also within Reliance itself being a consumer company, and Jio being one of their big initiatives, we expect to touch a lot of lives and thereby our revenue to be significantly higher than where we are today.
Very nice. Now let's switch gears to something very close to your heart, which is about values. You know, whenever I interact with you, I find two things very striking. One is the clarity with which you think and with which you communicate. But I also realize that some of that clarity comes from the sense of deep integrity within. And when I say integrity, it is not just about governance. I get a sense that in your world, in your own worldview, if I can say so, it has a very different meaning. So what is integrity to you, and what is values to you, and what is, give us a personal example of a price that you may have paid early in the life of your company when your values got tested, your sense of integrity got tested.
The way I define values is, let me try to just differentiate two things. One is what we achieve. Unfortunately, today, success is equated with what someone achieves. But the how or the process that was adopted to achieve that is not taken into account. So to me, values is the how part of it. That how I have gone about doing something where if I look back, then would I be questioning myself that did I use any means that I cannot justify myself to be able to achieve the end result? So there have been numerous instances in my journey. I will just highlight two. One is that values are an integral part of how we assess performance of all our individuals in the company. There are 6 values that are defined. Behavior across all of those values are clearly defined, and we assign weightage to the values along with what the individuals achieve in the performance process. One other example that I would like to give you is during our early days, very early days, when I was the only one who was responsible for sales and business development. At that time, every single penny of revenue, every single logo in terms of customer and partner mattered to us, right? Because we were living by the day. We had bootstrapped our company for first 6 years. There was no funding available, right? So it was either from our savings or the borrowing that we had from our friends and family or the revenue that we had. So during that time, I in fact had almost concluded a deal, or so I thought, with a multinational company, and they have their offices in Delhi. And it would have been extremely lucrative deal for us because it was kind of an exclusive partnership that any of their customers who would need languages, they would take it from Reverie. And I had met the head of business development in India. I had met the head of business development, their global head of business development, who had once come down to India, and everything we had discussed, and we were about to sign off. And once during my trip to Delhi, I went and met the business development head of India just to finish all the formalities and get a sign off. So during that discussion, he told me that we are ready to sign off, but there is one last thing that I wanted to tell you. It's a small thing. And I said, okay, fine, let's discuss what is it. So he told me that we will give you an account in Hong Kong, and you need to deposit 10% of the revenue that your company gets through us, through our partnership, into that account. And when I delved deeper into that, I realized that it was not an official transaction. It was meant for bribe or kickback for the head of business development in India and his boss, who was the global business development head. And I must be very honest that it was one of the most difficult decisions in my life. Because on one hand, that deal would take our company to a completely different level in terms of revenue, in terms of our value, the interest in investment in our company, all of those. And also all the aspirations of the people who have joined our company, trusting the founders and their vision. And on the other hand, I have something where I may end up questioning myself that is this something that you did right? So it was very difficult. But then I decided not to go ahead with that. I still remember the words I said to that person. I said, money is important for business. I know that. But money is not the only thing for which I decided to be an entrepreneur or start a company. I would rather not do business than do business under these terms. And I walked away. So obviously, we didn't sign that partnership. They never became our customers or partners or anything, right? We were always blocked. But that is one decision that I have never regretted. Not just me, almost everybody in our company knows about this incident. And fortunately enough, everybody stands by me and they feel proud that as a company, we stuck to our values and we took a decision like that.
Fantastic, absolutely amazing. And it becomes, these kinds of stories actually become badge of pride, and they define the character of the entire organization for generations to come. And so thank you for sharing that. Really, at some level, I would say it's an intimate story, and this is very inspiring, particularly in a country where a lot of people think that the means and the end don't have to be in consonance, and as long as the end is met, the means can be anything. So doing the right thing the right way is not something that comes very easily to people who are in the world of business. And it's entrepreneurs like you who are bucking the trend. But values are not stuff that is about what we say. It is about what we do and what price we are willing to pay for it, which is what you just demonstrated in that example. Tell me, with the limited time that we have, I have a couple of more questions. One is, tell us something hilarious about raising a company.
Very early days, and we had taken on office space. Cost always, expenses was always a constraint when we have a bootstrap startup. And we consciously decided to bootstrap our startup for 6 years. So these are our very early days. We were just about, including the founders, we were 5-6 of us. And we decided to take an office space in a building, which was, the entire building was like a shell. And commute was not possible. Buses, autos never agreed to, buses were not flying on that route. Autos never agreed to come that side. So we still decided to take an office space there. And we negotiated with our building owner. So he did one portion of that, which is about 3,000 square feet. And could you believe that 3,000 square feet, we were paying 15,000 rupees rent per month.
Oh my God. So it must have been pretty much like Steve Jobs' garage.
So it was like that. And then no ACs, nothing. It was just plain vanilla, basic, whatever is required. And that time we were trying to expand our team. Expand in the sense what you hire about maybe 2, 3, 5 more additional people at that time. So someone who was working at Infosys, he somehow got to know about this job opportunity. And then he was interested. And he spoke to some of my colleagues, including Vivek, who is my co-founder and brother, that he is interested and he would like to come for an interview to our office. Then I asked Vivek that, can I have a look at his resume? And then when I went through his resume, I saw that all along he has worked in large corporates with absolutely no experience in smaller companies. So I personally called that guy. And my discussion with him was why he should not join our company. It's not about why he should.
It's called negative selling.
Yeah. So that's what I did. So I spent about 15-20 minutes explaining that life in a startup could be tough and there is no cafeteria, right? And then not even cafeteria, forget about that. There is nothing available close by where you can go and get a good snack for yourself or lunch. Then our salaries and all of those things are dependent on, and those are like chaotic. It is nowhere close to the kind of structure and predictability that you are used to. So he continued to convince me, saying that no, I am bored of working in large corporates. I want to come and experience a startup, and what you guys are working on is very different, is very unique. I would like to come and join. So he finally convinced me that he would like to come for an interview, and his interview was scheduled. Our office was the structure was kind of L-shaped, where the moment you open the door, there is kind of an old sofa that we were using for someone to come and sit there. And as you walk in and turn left, then you would see our actual office space. So we were waiting for this guy. There was no bell, nothing, no receptionist, nothing. So if somebody is there, they need to just walk in and talk to anybody who is available in the office. There's just 5, 6 of us. So we were waiting at the time when he was supposed to come, and he didn't turn up. That's what we thought, that he didn't turn up. We waited for half an hour, 45 minutes. And eventually we got to know that it is not that he didn't turn up. He came, he opened the door. And after that, he decided that he's better off not taking the interview. He went back from
Very nice.
Very nice, very nice story. Yeah, indeed, these are the things that define what a startup is. And people romanticize it. So I'm a big company guy, I don't really need the money. I've been there, done that. I'm bored with my job. I don't like my boss. I want the adrenaline of a startup. But when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, it's a very different ball game. So I'm not surprised that our friend went away. Good for him and good for you. Moving on, I would like to ask you, so I'm a +2 student, or maybe a class 10th student of the same KV that you studied in. What would you like to tell this kid about, entrepreneurship as an option? What would you like to tell the youngsters, who may be inspired by your story? I know it is asking a lot, because you could be writing a whole book for them. But what would you tell them, particularly young people who are growing up in a state like Odisha?
May I use a couple of my interactions with very young people in my family itself? Then that could possibly set the tone for...
I think that's a very good idea.
The message that I want to communicate. By the way, people do ask me that, for fellow entrepreneurs, what is the advice that you would like to give? I tell them that there is only one advice I would like to give, that don't take too much of advice. Follow your gut, follow your instinct. But these are a couple of instances that I would like to share with interactions with very young folks. One of them was working in a corporate, and he came and asked me this question, that if I want to become an entrepreneur, then how much of money is enough for my safety net, right? So I told him that if you would have asked me a question that how much money is required for me to start up, my answer would have been different. Yep. But what you asked me is that how much money is required for my safety net. So my answer
the test straight away. He doesn't need to be an entrepreneur, because he wants safety and he needs a net also on top of that.
So I gave him a context to that one. I told him that how much do you think is your safety net? How much money? Why don't you define that instead of I defining it? So he came up with a figure. I said, even if you have 5 times the figure in your bank, I will still not advise you to take up entrepreneurship. And he asked me this question, why? So I told him that, see, when you are talking about a safety net, inherently you have in your mind that when you start this journey, okay, with that money, whatever safety net you have, you will be able to go a certain distance, achieve certain milestones for your company. That will give you earning for yourself from the company, that will sustain a certain lifestyle that you want to sustain. Now, the challenges that you have envisaged on your way, multiply that by 1 lakh. So that many challenges you are likely to encounter. You are not likely to encounter 5-10 challenges that you have envisaged. And the first such challenge that you will encounter, major challenge that you have not envisaged, you know what you will think first? You will first think of your safety net, not about how I can go through this challenge and overcome that. And the moment you think about your safety net, you will always get drawn towards that and not focus on solving this challenge. Therefore, you are better off continuing in the corporate world. And that is what he's still doing. My other interaction, similar interaction, was a very young guy who came and asked me that I have this fear that there are so much of risk involved in startup. What if I fail? And I asked him, how old are you? So he was in his early 20s, like fresh out of college or maybe just 1 or 2 years into it. I said, what is your risk? You have already graduated. You are in a job, but you want to try or do something on your own. What is preventing you from that? This fear of unknown. So one simple thing I asked him, that do you think you are ever going to end up in a situation where you will not be able to earn food for yourself? He said, no. I said, then there is no risk. And that is the message that I would like to communicate to every student. Don't get drawn by what's happening around you, what's there in the media. Okay, learning, experimenting, trying out things, do that, whatever you like. This is the age, do that. And the other message I would like to communicate also is that in India itself, there are very unique problems to solve that nobody is focusing on. Identify some of those and try to solve those. Enjoy the journey is what I would like to communicate to all of this.
Thank you very much. And before we close, let me ask you a personal question here. And that is, so between your wife and 11-year-old daughter, who is the resident critic? And who are you more afraid of?
In terms of honest criticism, it's my daughter.
Okay. So she puts you on the mat and she makes you blurt the truth and tells you the truth as it is.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Excellent. Good luck with her and all the very best. It was really, really nice talking to you. We have a fairly long transcript of an interview that we have also done outside of the conversation today, which will be available to viewers online. And we look forward to the opportunity of hosting you in Odisha after COVID subsides. So meanwhile, please stay safe and keep the flag flying. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And namaskar once again.
Namaskar.
Bahut bhal lagila interaction. I was honestly looking forward to this, and I would have considered it as a privilege to meet you in person and have this interaction. And I will reserve that for a time, better times, when things improve and we will meet in.
Thank you very much, Arvind, and good luck.
Thank you so much, sir.
So that was a really nice conversation with Arvind Pani, who's the founder of Reverie Technologies, an individual with great clarity of thinking, business acumen, capability to execute on a business idea, ability to actually create great partnership with customers and strategic investors. Arvind redefines what it means to be a startup in a world where we all think that just create an app, create a piece of technology, and you can build a company. This is truly an inspiring story that must be told to every young person, every would-be entrepreneur in Odisha, so that we produce many more great entrepreneurs like Arvind Pani. So look forward to seeing you again in the next edition of Startup Story. Until then, stay tuned.